Joining me to discuss the issue is our world affairs analyst, Marco Vicenzino. Marco, who's right and who's wrong in all of this?
It's important to place it within a historical context. I mean, you have six countries claiming parts of the South China Sea. Obviously, you have China, it's Taiwan, Malaysia, Brunei, Vietnam, and the Philippines. But the most serious claimants, apart from China, actually occupying areas in the South China Sea, would be Vietnam and Philippines. It got to the point where actually Vietnam and China had a full conflict on the high seas in 1974 and 1988. Vessel skirmishes in recent times. So it's something that the Chinese will say that it's been ours, and they'll point to maps from the late 1940s saying that we have our legitimate claims. The Vietnamese say, well, China had no claims until then, starting before the 1940s. Vietnam will claim that they actually had, that their people just fishing the areas and occupying a lot of areas in the South China Sea as far back as the 17th century. The best way for dispute resolution on this is obviously you would say negotiations, mediations, but we're far from that.
Because I suppose there are international rules governing how the seas are all sort of carved up, if you like, and this area is the bit that doesn't fall inside those regular rules.
It's the UN Convention on the Law of the Seas, 1986. Has broad parameters and broad outlines, but when you're looking at an area like the South China Sea, there's a lot of details that the convention will be subject to interpretation. I think we would also have to look this within the context of Chinese foreign policy as it's developed in recent years. Chinese foreign policy from 1949 to the early 80s was, for the most part, non-interference. After the 80s with the economic opening, and it grew economically, in recent years it's begun flexing its muscles, its military muscle, its military might, and it doesn't do so globally. It'll do so more. You look at commercial influence of China throughout the world, but it's in immediate vicinity, whether it's the East China Sea for territorial claims against the Japanese or the South China Sea. China is now more confident, not only economically, its budget has increased. So in this sense, it feels it's in a strong position to be able to make these claims and to back it up.
But this isn't just about a land grab. This is literally creating land. So what do China in particular want this territory for?
Obviously, first and foremost, it's the natural resources. Then secondly is important fishing areas, and thirdly is the lanes, the shipping lanes, extremely important shipping lanes between Northeast Asia. Apart from China, we're also looking at Korea and Japan.
So is this an interruption potentially to trade lanes?
For many years, there had been the shipping lanes from East Asia going to the Middle East in terms of oil, export of products from Far East going to Europe and to Africa. So trade is vital, and this particular area in the South China Sea is key. And for many years, the U.S. Navy patrolling these waters, there's been, we could say, a peaceful period. That's also allowed China itself to develop commercially over the last 20, 30 years. So in that sense, the Americans are saying, well, you're making these land reclamations. Why are you being so aggressive about it when we've had, just go through negotiations, attempt dispute resolutions? Why destabilize this area when it hasn't been destabilized before?
Yeah, and who should be regulating and sort of controlling this area?
You look also, I'd say, once again, that UN Convention on the Law of the Sea of 1986 would provide a point of reference. The Philippines in recent years has taken China is to a UN tribunal under that treaty. Will China abide by it?
All of these groups are kind of doing, they're operating in the area, but who should be policing that?
In terms of the actual policing of it, it'd be difficult to say, because once you start policing the area, you start putting your militaries in, that's going to provoke. And that's what happened, the skirmishes between Vietnam and China that took place in 74 and 88, and also in recent years you have had these collision of vessels. It's about that, is that not only who has rights to it, but who can place its commercial shipping there and also its military shipping. The U.S. once again is looking at it as trying through dispute resolution to keep these seas open for international trade.
No doubt this one is going to run and run. Marco Vicenzino, thank you very much.